Hi,
Hello there.
I just have to do a few things here to get set up,
Okay.
and then we'll be almost ready. We're not quite ready for other people to show up yet.
Okay. My computer is dying and I'm getting a new one tomorrow, so I hope it all goes fine.
Hey,
It's
I think we all have computer issues.
yes.
Here, what happens is the internet goes out,
Oh
so
wow.
that's another problem. We'll just hope.
Okay.
We do record it so it can be edited, according to whatever we're doing.
Right.
Tamara does that. She's pretty good at that. I just have to find something here to, oh boy. That looks like a lovely space you have.
Oh, it is. It is. It's a tiny little study, but and I've always worked in this, like a 6 by 8 space.
That's great.
I have like room for a single guest bed over there. And yeah.
Oh, okay. I have a little cottage out back of my house that I set up to use as a study.
Mhm.
But it hasn't quite worked out because I have a puppy and I'm always trying to watch him in the main house.
Oh my, okay.
So uh, when he gets a little bit older, maybe I'll use it. But it's set up, and I know it's nice to have that kind of designated space. Ah, I found it. Okay, let's see.
Oh, I wonder.
Okay, now I hope this works. Okay. Ah,
Took
Stephanie.
a photograph to show my friend. Those two paintings in the back are by a friend of mine.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah, I like them. I only had one, and then I decided I wanted another one.
Oh, they're great. Hi, Stephanie.
Morning. Hi, how are you?
Hello.
Hello. Where are you? You located?
Oh,
Hey, Pamela.
I'm in Cambridge, so it's afternoon here.
Oh, hi, Chuck.
Oh,
Hello,
look at
I'm
all
in
the
Seattle,
photos.
obviously.
Right, yes, yeah.
Yeah, we're waiting a little bit for Tamara and a few other people to show up.
Okay. Oh, I like your book in the background, Sharyn. It looks good.
Mhm.
Well, I see, because you have it.
No, I see it's on the window behind you. Yeah,
Yes, it is.
it looks
I,
good there.
I always have it there. She has it too,
I
Yeah.
and
just
she's in
noticed.
it, and so is Chuck.
Yeah, we all have it, obviously.
And Ava.
Uh-huh. There's Ava.
Hi.
Hi, Ava. I don't know if she's on yet, but yay.
Hi.
Hi. You look good. Happy Thanksgiving afterwards.
To everyone.
Good
Yeah.
morning.
Good
Hi.
morning.
Hi, Tamara. I think.
She's there. She's getting here.
Yeah.
Slowly but surely.
Yes. Hi.
Good
Hi.
morning, Tamarah.
Good
Hello.
morning. Good morning. Good morning.
How
What
was
am I doing?
Thanksgiving?
Bountiful. For me, but
Yes, it was good.
my family, we have 5 kids. We just stayed home and just enjoyed the day. Went for a walk.
Did
Very
you,
Well, with 5 kids, I can't imagine that you would need more at the table.
No, that's enough. I don't think that I can do any more dishes. We're still catching up.
Oh, no. They should help.
They are helping, but we're also here. It's just, there's always dishes. There's always,
Oh,
there's
what are
always,
their age ranges?
my oldest is 20 and my youngest is 11.
Oh my gosh.
they can definitely wash dishes.
Yes.
Yes.
No problem with that. Tamara, I'm having a little problem getting the sidebar off. Do you know how to do that?
Sidebar.
The participants list.
Let
I
me
don't
see.
see it.
No, I know you don't see it. I do.
Oh, I
But
see it
want-
down.
You do?
Yeah, in the very bottom where it says stop video share screen, 6 participants. I see it.
Oh, there, I did it. Okay. Now I can see everyone better.
So Sharon, I meant to, since we have a few minutes to start, I meant to ask you the question about the book, what's next, the cover, the front. Who designed it? It's so intriguing. Is that a snake kind of swarming?
Hi, Diane.
Uh,
Actually,
yeah.
the publisher happens to be a designer. So she decided to do this herself. It's Dee Dee Cummings. And frankly, I had mixed feelings about it. Maybe because what you're saying, it's intriguing or interesting or whatever. I just didn't know what
Intriguing.
pardon me?
Intriguing.
I just didn't know what to make of it.
Hmm.
I honestly didn't know how to interpret it.
So
But
Stephanie,
it worked.
has anybody thought about it?
Yes.
Okay, how do you take it? What was the
I'm sorry, when I saw it, all I could think of, pardon me for saying this, was with it's not a religious context, but Adam and Eve and the serpent being the fountain of the instigator of knowledge and inquisition and change.
Wow.
right? Okay,
Because
and
the temptress.
that translates to what is next.
Mhm.
Okay.
Change.
Okay, that's a good it's a better interpretation than mine, honestly. I just didn't know what she was doing. But you're right, Ava, there are a lot of myths having to do with snakes. And
Mhm.
you can pick any any of them. I
Yes,
really don't
yeah.
know what she had in
Uh-huh.
mind. Maybe
Right.
Tamara could help.
Honestly, when I saw it, it's snakes are typically symbolic of wisdom and insight. And so I just thought that it was a reflection on that, you know, the stories would have wisdom and insight. And I just, that was just a gut feeling. And so,
That's a good idea, actually. I like that one. Yeah, wisdom.
Wanted that. That was your idea.
Yes, it
And
was originally.
and more women authors were collected in this anthology. So
I
women.
didn't, I really didn't plan it that way.
Okay.
I was looking for stories that had diverse viewpoints and backgrounds and all kinds of things that would add to the mix. And it just worked out that there are a few more women, I suppose, than men in the book. Chuck is one of them.
Representative.
Okay, do you want to get started? If anyone else shows up, well, they just do, and we can get started now. I think, as usual, all of you have probably seen Pamela's description, her bio in the in the announcement. So I'm just going to give a brief bio. PamelaPainter is the award-winning author of 5 story collections and co-author with Anne Bernays of What If? Writing Exercises for Fiction Writers. The stories have appeared in numerous journals, including The Atlantic, Harper's, Plowshares, and New Flash Fiction Review, and anthologies, including, of course, What's Next? She has received grants from the Massachusetts Artists Foundation and the National Endowment for the Arts. She's won 3 Pushcart Prizes and Agni Review's John Cheever Award for Fiction. Her flash stories have been presented on National Public Radio and YouTube, and her work has been staged by Word Theatre in Los Angeles, London, and New York. PamelaPainter's newest collection of stories is Fabrications, New and Selected Stories. And Pamela, you want to talk a little bit about your story or anything?
Sure. I have some just notes here I thought I'd start out with, and then we all could have a conversation. Sharyn, thank you for publishing my story, A Fabricated Life. It's one I particularly like, the idea of fabrication too, and I love your title, What's Next? Because surely my character Trixie had to think about what's next. She had to make some decisions, and oddly, what's next also sent me backwards in a way, to think of the fork in the road. And maybe we can talk a little more about like the fork in the road when conversation starts. But that's what Trixie had to encounter, right? She had a niece coming. She was living a dissolute life, and she had to change her life because she really wanted to take good care of this niece. So she had to get sober. She had to care about her job, and she had to be open to a relationship with a good man. And so thinking about the fork in the road, it really made a big difference for me. When I was out of college, my first job was teaching high school English and history. I had 7 preparations back then. And so I taught there for 3 years. The 3rd year I was teaching, the principal gave me a creative writing course to teach. And I marched into his office and I said, I don't know anything about creative writing. I like to read, but I don't know anything about it. He said, well, you're going to have to learn. You're going to have to do it. So the first day that I met with my students, I thought, we'll just jump right in. So I said to them, okay, tonight go home and write a story and bring it in tomorrow. And they all complained. Somehow I think they knew more than I did. They really complained. So I said, never mind, I'll do it with you. I wrote my first short story that night. And that semester, I wrote 3 short stories. My second story became my first published story. And I just never looked back. I was a writer from that point on. And if that principal hadn't insisted I teach that course, maybe I'd still be teaching high school. I'd be teaching, Hemingway and Doris Betts and, just Gail Godwin, Charles Johnson. I would have been teaching about writers, but not writing. Anyway, so that was a fork in the road for me. And I want to hear about some of your forks in the road. But then I had other twists and turns in my life. Earlier this year, I was asked by Vancouver Flash Fiction. I'm now writing flash fiction, tiny little stories. I had a copy of the book here. So I was asked to come up with a writing tip. They said, not too many words, just a writing tip. So here's what I came up with. And it took me a while to come up with it because I write stories, but I don't usually think that much about what they are. Anyway, so I wrote, forget plot. Plot sits like a boulder on your story. Instead, think unstable situation, and notice that every unstable situation has a past and a future. Also, forget conflict. It too is a dead weight. Instead, think tension and anticipation, apprehension, and dread. So anyway, so I had to come up with this piece of advice. I sent it off to Vancouver Flash Fiction, and they published it in the internet. And I had a lot of response to that idea that, you know, forget plot, that it's a big old boulder. And it reminded me again of something else in the past. Years and years ago, probably like in the 90s, several editors had suggested to me and a friend of mine, Anne Bernays, that we write a book or a writing guide to fiction. And we just thought that sounded like a lot of work, but it would be more fun if we wrote it together. So we put together a proposal, and our agent sent it around, and there was an editor, Rick Cott at HarperCollins, who gave us a contract. And so we went to work on writing our textbook, What If? Writing Exercises for Fiction Writers. And it's now in its third college edition, and it's really taught in most of the colleges in the country. Anyway, so our manuscript consisted of writing exercises about beginnings. You all know the possibilities: characterization, dialogue, point of view, and lots of quotes by writers we admire. So we were really happy with our manuscript. We sent it off to our editor, and he called us a few days later. He said he loved what we'd done, but we had left out plot. this entire manuscript, we were missing plot. I mean, even though, you know, just everybody knows Aristotle's diagram, da-da-dum, da-da-dum, it goes up and it gets here, and then there's a denouement. I can't even remember the trajectory, but anyway. So we were amazed, because surely we valued plot. Every story kind of has something going on. So we did a section on plot. But it wasn't until I wrote my writing trip that I put it into words for myself, why I thought that the concept of plot hurts writing. And when you're, you know, and I taught writing for a long time at Emerson College, and when you're sitting there with a new group of students and talking about writing, just the word plot is a boulder. But unstable situation, think about how wonderful that is. I would imagine that you all are in an unstable situation of some sort. You know, who's what Tamarah? Is it your family? You have too many, you have dishes still sitting from Thanksgiving. Somebody might be, you know, having problems with a dear best friend, or, you know, in the middle of a divorce or getting married, trying to decide whether to get married. Think of all the unstable situations there are in the world. They are so rich for fiction because they have a past. And, you know, if you're diligent, every unstable situation is going to have a future. Anyway, so that's I buried plot for myself, and with that Vancouver quote. And but back to what's next. Sharyn, I like what you said in the introduction. What's next is the question that the authors in this anthology pose, directly or indirectly, though not one of their stories predicts a definite answer. Will Trixie in my story stay sober? Is she going to stay with the young man she married just to sort of finally please herself and her cousin? And there's that incredible line that kind of like is an arc into the future in the Tom Gammarino's story, Future Studies. That line is, "This will haunt him for years." Oh, which makes you really wonder what happened to that relationship. And then what next matters enormously to Charles Johnson's story, Night Shift. I mean, wow, that story, you just know that there's an arc in the future for that young man who has just, you know, set his brother free from the hospital when the police were, of course, going to come after him. And then Amina Gaudier's story, I don't know if I'm pronouncing her name right, but that story absolutely asserts she knows exactly where she is. She still has left the world of her condo behind. And will she ever return to it? So clearly that Chicago life that she talked about, disparaged actually, it's still there. It's in the past of the story, and it's also in the future of the story. Anyway, what else can I say? I believe in hard work. I care enormously about hard work, and I said that one thing about plot, and the other thing I've said that's sort of an aphorism is discipline is a form of self-respect. Think of that. Discipline is a form of self-respect. And then you probably all have an idea of the work of artist Chuck Close. And here's what he said: inspiration is for amateurs. The rest of us show up and get to work. Isn't that wonderful? I mean, if you think you're going to wait for an inspiration, and then another day goes by and it hasn't happened, the dishes are sitting there, somebody wants dinner, the bottle of wine still has half 2 more glasses for you. So, but what he means is, no, you just get to work. You show up at your desk. I believe in revision enormously. Revision is, I think it was Dr. Rowe who said, revision is where you come to inhabit the work fully. So that's just, I think, just really important to where you are with stories. Sometimes I don't know what a story, my longer stories, sometimes I don't know what they're about until like the 9th draft. And then I terrify myself with what they're really about. And then I go on and usually do like 16 or 17 drafts of a long story. I've been writing flash fiction now, but even that requires revision. Writing groups, I believe in having a writing group. And when I moved to Boston from Chicago, I had been editing a magazine called Story Quarterly in Chicago. When I moved to Boston, a friend said, would you like to teach at Harvard Extension? So that was my first teaching gig in Boston. And I had some students who I thought were really, really good, and they wanted me to join a writing group with them. And I said, no, but if you go ahead and meet on your own after the summer, I'll join you. And 2 of us, we now have a little writing group of 4, but 3 of us are from that first course that I taught years ago. And I'd like to hear if any of you are in writing groups. We're thinking about one, or reading groups. Reading together is just one of the great pleasures. I believe in reading and reading and reading. And you find the most amazing things when you read. I don't know what made me pick up a Henry James. I just took it away. It was dirty. I picked up a Henry James novel called The Europeans. And I have a coffee mug and a refrigerator magnet. I love refrigerator magnets with sayings. And it was, when I am wicked, I am in high spirits. And I love being wicked, and high spirits are wonderful. So anyway, when I am wicked, I am in high spirits. I thought James said that because it certainly sounds like something he could say. And, I didn't think any more about it until out of the blue, about a week ago, I picked up his novel, The Europeans. And in it, there's a character, a young woman, who's a really pissy character. And the other characters in the novel just think she's just incorrigible. And that's what she tells someone: when I am wicked, I am in high spirits. That felt just like a gift from the gods for me to find that in one of his novels. And anyway, so I hope you all are readers. I was known when I was growing up as an only child with, there's that Pam with her nose in a book. And I was always reading. I can't stand to go out of the house without a book in my purse, or, if the purse is smaller, what I do is I go through New Yorkers and I tear out the stories. Probably a third of them are too terrible to continue, I think. But anyway, some are wonderful, and I fold them up and put them in my purse. But I think probably if you're here today, you're all readers. And then certainly, to get back to the title of your collection, Sharyn, it seems to me that what next is one of the most pressing questions for today, for the situation in Gaza, for the health of the planet, for our next election. What next matters enormously. And I thank you for putting this collection together and having us think about it.
Oh, well, thank you. And you sure have given us a lot to think about. So Diane, yes.
I just want to point out that we do have a writers group at the Rainier Club, and we use the book that you wrote with Anne.
Okay, what version do you use? Because this is what it now looks like.
We don't use that one. We use an older version.
I'm really pissed off with the publisher. It costs, I think it's like $60 or $70 now. And you can rent it, but the older versions don't have the gold mine that this is. So
Okay.
yeah, I mean, and HarperCollins, who did the first edition, now still sells it, and it's so old, and it has about a third of what's in this.
There it is.
That's it. Yeah, yep. That's the one. And if any of you are teachers, you could write to them and ask for a teacher's copy. But what happened is Rupert Murdoch bought HarperCollins, and because the first textbook was an addendum to a contract, Pearson, which now publishes this, rents our book from HarperCollins, and HarperCollins still sells the really old first version. And we've redone it 3 times. This one now has stories in it, and I don't know. Anyway, so
Okay.
So beautiful. The new
Let's
one's so
get
beautiful.
back a little bit to the story.
Sorry.
Okay. You've given us a lot to think about with this story, and fork in the road plot. When I was thinking about it, I had a different idea of it. And my idea was everything from what is the self? What exactly is the self? Because that's what this person is creating, to fake news, everything on that spectrum. So maybe we can talk about a little bit of it, but I want to get to just basic thing, the characters' names, Trixie and Grace. That really jumped out at me. I don't know. Do I have much faith in Trixie staying in the period of grace that she's in? How do you see her? I know you said that there's a trajectory that goes on after, but she's making up her life here, and
well, she likes cats. She likes cats. So that was one of the first steps. Anybody who's drunk, thank God I haven't been there as an alcoholic, but anybody who wishes they were not. I know a number of people who wishes they were not, and have gone through AA and come out. And I think that's where Trixie was. Just as you said her name, though, I mean, when you think of the word, and I never thought of this, tricks. It just occurred to me. She was full of tricks, right?
Yeah.
But I think one of the things she did is she tricked herself into really wanting to be a better person, especially for this niece who was going to come to live with her. I mean, we're coming upon the new year. We're all going to make, maybe we're going to make New Year's Eve resolutions. And how many of us stick to them? but they're all about being a better person, aren't they? Writing more stories, being kinder to our children, taking, better care of the cat. Yeah, I love cats. But anyway, so yeah, I trusted that she was going to stay on that path, that had been a fork in the road for her. Because I mean, after you take that fork in the road, you can't go back usually. I mean, once I took that fork in the road to start teaching that writing workshop, there was no going back. I was a writer, and yeah.
Stephanie?
Yeah, it seemed to me, I reread it yesterday. In a way, she sort of backs into creating her own reality through her fabrications of her life. And it becomes her new reality, in a sense. And I
Right.
think it's very fascinating how, all the deceit and the pretense and the lies, and then trying to become something she wasn't, she became it.
Right. I love your use of the term, she backs into it. Because I mean, we all have the language that makes sense to us. You're using she backs into something, whereas I saw it as a fork in the road. But in order to back into it, she had to go backwards and then take another path, right? I love that she backed into it. Yeah.
Because I don't think it was so conscious. When you come to a fork in a road, you have to go this way or this way usually. But what was it he said? Or you come to the fork in the road, you take it. Pick up the fork. But anyway,
Who said that?
Yogi Berra, I think.
Oh,
You come to the fork in the road, take it. Isn't that
love
Yogi Berra? I think so. I'm not sure. But anyway, I think she wasn't so consciously, deliberately planning this. She just backed into it.
right. I have to write that down. I like that, Yogi Berra. Take it. Yeah. Well, it was forced on her with the idea of her niece coming, and she wanted to. There's another term, like you want to rise to the occasion. Notice it's always rising to the occasion, instead of like sinking to something. Yeah, when you sink to something, it's not very good. But okay, backing into something, rising to the occasion. Yes.
The only thing she seems to care, she did care, because her relationships with her one night stands, she just didn't care. I mean, that was just that. So because this was forced on her, this arrival of the niece, and she did care about her family, apparently. That's why I'm thinking she sort of backed into this fabrication. She had to remember what she lied about. She had to go through her email to figure out what did she have? What did she create? And then then it became reality. I love that part of it.
And you use the word fabrications. I gave that to the title of my my most recent book. But the seeds were there for the cat. She likes cats. And the young man that she eventually takes up with, his ties have always amused her. Yeah. I think we all want to be good, don't we?
So in a way, she had already created her fabrication. She had already fabricated what she was going to be. Is that what you meant by backing into it? She was backing into the self that she had already created.
Yeah, without realizing it.
Right.
She didn't know what she created. She had to go research the cat on her email or research all the stories and that she lied about. And that's what I meant, that she sort of backed into it. And then it became her reality. But I don't believe she went out seeking it, except she did seek the cat, because she knew she had to get a cat. And then it had to be the gray cat. And so she really went to a lot of work to get that cat.
Right. And I when she was getting the cat, I was kind of wondering if that story about her grandfather was real. If that too was fabricated.
Yeah. And then, the other thing I've had a few friends that have shared with me what they had to go through when they were alcoholics before they became sober. And it's an ongoing fight and process. So I don't know if she was, if she really was an alcoholic, because I don't think she would have been able to blow off AA in 2 sessions and then becomes relatively sober. So I wondered about that. And then to even care about the family and about fabricating her new life showed me that she really truly wasn't quite an alcoholic.
Well, and she had a job too,
Yeah, exactly.
right? Which apparently she was keeping up with.
Mhm.
I
Is that
think,
right, Pamela?
I
Joe?
think she did have a job.
Oh.
She kind of embellished the details of it. But I
Mhm.
think if she had stayed on the path of her drinking and her one night stands, it would not have ended well.
No.
And this way, her life has a new trajectory and a new ending. A better,
Okay.
yeah.
Yes, Joe?
I want to thank Pamela for this story, but also for your observations about how you created the story and for your remarks earlier about the difficulty with plot and thinking about stories in terms of conflict. Those are fairly traditional ways that we teach students and we learn ourselves about how to construct a story. But your observations were full of wisdom based upon your experience and also as a writer, but also as a teacher of writing. You and Sharyn share in common having taught at Emerson College. I don't know if she told you that or not. But yeah, we one of the hardest things for a writer is this question of plot, because my own teacher was John Gardner, and he once observed that plot is the writer's equivalent to the philosopher's argument.
Hmm.
Plots is about causation. This causes that to happen, and then something else happens. So if someone were to ask you about your story, what is its argument? Is there an argument?
What is the target, did you say? What is the
Argument.
argument? An argument. First of all, Gardner was one of the gods whenever I was beginning to write. So I very much admire the 2 books he wrote on fiction, writing fiction. And
Yes.
yeah, oh, what is I don't know. It's almost like I don't know where stories come from. And I have never an idea. So the idea of plot seems to me to embody structure. And yet when I begin a story, I never know where I'm going, ever. I never knew an ending. And I married a man who wrote, Roby Macaulay was my husband, and he wrote a book called The Technique in Fiction. And he said, you always have to know where you're going. Otherwise, how will you get there? And when we got married, usually the secrets are, oh, I slept with that person, or I slept with that person, or this is what I did. And my secret when Roby and I got married was I never knew where I was going, even though he wrote that as an absolute law in his wonderful book, Technique in Fiction. And I never knew where I was going. So I don't know that I can answer that, Charles.
Well, you don't really have to have
No.
an argument, but the story will come to rest. And it'll come to rest on the basis of everything that you have created at the beginning of the story and the middle of the story. And the reader will have a takeaway of some kind emotionally. There will be an emotional takeaway that the reader experiences. And, I just thought your observations were really trenchant and illuminating. So thank you.
Well, thank you. And every story also has a future in a way, right? Some of you have alluded to, will she be satisfied with this new life? And Charles, if there's any story in here that has a future, yours has an immense future but you stopped And we just wonder what's going to happen to that young man when the staff discovers that he has let his brother out because of
Yeah.
family.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess I feel that if we were going to put the scrim of plot on your story, that maybe somebody would say, but it's not finished. When I thought emotionally for me, it was finished. And I guess that's what I feel when I say, you know, I think about the unstable situation,
Yes.
where every unstable situation has a past
Yes.
and a future. And your story's future was very satisfying to me.
Yeah.
Even though plot-wise, Gardner might have said, keep going. I don't know. But
Yeah. Well, when I wrote that story, what I was doing for a couple of years was trying to give myself a moral dilemma for a protagonist to deal with. And you can see the moral dilemma in Night Shift. It's loyalty to one's brother, but one's brother has taken a path totally different from that of the protagonist. But nevertheless, by the end of the story, he has honored his family obligation to his brother, and he's probably managed to keep his job. Maybe we'll see. But also when you talk about conflict, I like the way you talked about that too in terms of tension. It's a tension rather than conflict with a capital C, if that makes sense.
But to me, what the problem with the word conflict was always, it seemed to be outward, like you have a conflict with another character. And in my story, the conflict is internal. Trixie has those issues, those unstable situations. And Charles, in your story, for example, the conflict is internal. We know that he's had problems with the brother in the past, right? And we know he has loyalty to his brother, and kind of loyalty to his job and the people he works with. Certainly that young woman with her wonderful face mask with the little things on it appeal to him. So I don't see, so to put conflict as a necessary requirement, it seems to me to hurt both of our stories. I like apprehension and anticipation and dread.
Yes. Well, there's one more way you can talk about this. I used to do this with my students. You can say that a character starts out in a state of equilibrium, right? Equilibrium. And something comes along, either to enter into their world that causes disequilibrium, or there's something not in their world that they desire, and that will cause disequilibrium. So the character has to try to reestablish equilibrium, bringing in that which is missing or removing that which is causing a problem. So, you don't have to say conflict, but you could say it's the effort to achieve equilibrium in this person's life.
Right, but again, what you're talking about is internal, and I guess that's what matters to me most. And I think you used the word desire.
Yes.
I think that could be another aspect. If I ever revise my my description, that could be in there too. Apprehension, dread, desire. That would be something good to add, I think.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm going to have to write that down. I believe in taking notes. Yeah, desire. That really just fits in there so well. Forget conflict. Instead, think tension, anticipation. Anticipation, in a way, could be desire, but apprehension and dread. Yeah, anticipation.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I love teaching, by the way. I really loved sitting there with students and seeing their minds work and reading their revisions. I used to teach a course in revision also, and loved that. And Sharyn, I didn't know you were at Emerson. If I knew it, I'd forgotten it. And
I think before you were there.
okay.
I can't remember all the people were there. Dennis Leary was there. He was teaching comedy writing. He went on to be an actor.
A famous one, yes.
Yes. Yeah, he was my office mate.
Oh my God, really? Are you still in touch with him, I hope?
No. He's too famous.
No. We all love notes from the past.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you must have some funny stories about him as an office mate. Either he was really particular and cared that his everything was squared off. I like things squared off, or else he was a mess. You know.
I won't comment. You can do that in private.
Him and remind him. I think voices from the past are as valuable as as our friends.
I think Franklin, I think that was his last name, was the chair when I was there. It was before you, and it was actually when I was instrumental in putting the two departments together, the professional writing department and the creative writing and literature department.
Well, yeah, that history I don't know anything about, but good.
Right, it was that's why I'm saying it was before you were there. Tamarah, did you have anything to say? You seem to be thinking about something.
Oh, my goodness. Okay, so it was, only a few pages, but I think every single page, I have just as many notes as there are writing on the pages. Because when I read it, and it's really funny, I think it's serendipitous, but when I read this, I thought that it seemed like a modern day portrait of a lady, and I'm reading that right now. And so, I'm going through it as slowly as I can, because I love the writing and I love the story. It's just, that's my happy place. And so when I'm reading this, that's where I'm going to, is just, she has finances. And so she doesn't have to really worry about that, but there are, these social constraints that she is bound to. Now, she doesn't have to. That was her choice to receive the money. And like, sometimes if it's a choice to not receive the money as well. And so I thought it was interesting that she chose to at least tell her sister that she was in AA in order to get the money from their parents' trust. But there was a few things that were very clear to me. She was not a maleficent person. Like, she doesn't seek out evil. She doesn't seek to harm anyone. Even when her niece is coming over, she prepares it. And like she said, but a cat would be good for a 10-year-old. Like, she's actually looking at how to be loving in everything. Even with the guy that she slept with, there was a conflict with that. And so she's like, I'm just going to avoid that place because it's a conflict. And there's a lot of avoiding that she has. And the first 3 pages is just so many different aspects of loss. And I really appreciated that, because sometimes we see one thing and it's reflective of all of the loss. It's like she lost her car, for example, and then that car is going to represent everything else in her life she's lost. But she's lost her family, she's lost her parents, she's lost faith. I don't know if she had faith in the first place, but that was, she rejected it. There was the loss of the earth when she was talking about Stephen Hawking. On the next page, there was the loss of her name. The young man asked for the name and she names the cat. It's like there's all of this just breakdown of herself. And yet, even in the beginning, she is seeking out life. And the cat, I think, is more important in the beginning, to seek the cat more than, like, in a house, you need a couch with a blanket, and that's what every house needs. And for her, she's like, I'm seeking out life to bring into the house, and with life comes so many other things. And so the cat is going to bring the litter box and the food and whatever else. But also when her niece comes in, she's going to bring her life. And then she also is seeking out Norman, and he's going to bring his ties. And so I liked this because it had so much hope in it. When you do lose so much, and when your life falls apart, and when you do have to make these decisions, is all these little things will allow yourself to create a new life. And at the end, I actually wasn't expecting the last paragraph. I didn't think that I would see what happened. I thought that it would just be, kind of a Joyce Carol Oates, where she's just like, and that's what happened, and you have to figure it out on your own, which is always pleasant. But it's hard for me because I'm like, but at the end, what I thought was most interesting was she's always looking backwards. At the beginning, she's like, where is that email that I sent? What did I say? What was exactly the thing that I promised my sister? I have to remember all of this. And then even at the end, she's looking back, and it's a year later, and she's like, I don't even remember what I was planning during that dinner. And she's just always reflecting backwards. And so I think that it's interesting that is such a self-reflection of her. She's always looking at herself and worried about disappointing everyone else. And that's why she keeps it to herself and keeps it so quiet. And so I thought that it was just such an interesting structure to constantly be looking backwards. And we have to hope for her that her future is going to reflect all of this progress that she's made. And so it was very comforting to see that we were allowed to see into her life, and that we were allowed to see what she was worried about. She wasn't worried about superficial things. She was worried about her relationship with her sister, and her relationship with the men in her life, and the relationship with her niece. She didn't want her niece to come over and see everything that she had lost. And I think that the niece would be really reflective of the audience. It's like, you don't want that for your audience. And so you're showing them you can rebuild. And I think that like the hope in this is palpable. So that was my reflection on the story. But
Wow. Yeah, I mean, you bring it home with the idea that what that last paragraph did is it's almost like a gift to the reader, saying a year later, I think it begins a year later, it's still in place. The thing she manufactured is going to hold. Yeah, thank you for pointing that out, because it is sort of for the reader to know that this is going to matter. Yeah, stories come from amazing places. This is sort of like a little detour, but when my husband died, we had a wonderful, wonderful marriage. My husband died. I had a long relationship after that of 9 years, and then it was over. And about the time that relationship was over, a cat died. And my son said to me, Mom, you can be between men, but you can't be between cats. I thought I'd never get another cat. And he said, no, you can't be between cats. So probably 2 weeks later, I went out and I got another cat, and I was just so happy I got another cat. But so cats are in a lot of my stories. So you know, your close reading, all of you, with your close reading, it's made me realize that once again, a cat has sort of helped save the day, right? A cat has mattered enormously to a character as much as cats matter to me. Colette said, dogs have masters, cats have staff. And I love that from Colette. Any of you have cats? Any cat lovers there?
I used to have one, but I have dogs.
Okay, yeah, I recommend cats.
I, you know, oh, you do up. I just wanted to maybe just, my take on it was very similar to Tamarah's and Stephanie's, but I also thought something else about it, and that is, it didn't really seem to be going backwards. It seemed to be bringing out what she was already. You know, it's like herself was already there. It's just that she had to own it. She had to take it.
The good
And
part of herself.
pardon me?
The good part of herself.
Yeah, well, the other part just seemed to be a way she was masking it,
Mhm.
a way she was covering it up and didn't want to deal with it because for whatever reason, which I don't quite understand, it might have been too scary for her to deal with.
Mhm.
So at this point, she's letting out what she was. I mean, she already had created herself in those emails. So that seemed to me to be an example of what she really was. It was coming out from somewhere. So I'm assuming that it was from her, and it was the way she wanted to see herself because maybe that's the way she really was. And
Mhm.
the ending justifies that for me because she is what she described she was going to be. So the self that she created was really the self that was just naturally there for me. That's how I see it.
That's
Uh,
interesting that you saw, and the emails as sort of a template for
yes.
how she could be.
Hmm.
Interesting. Yeah.
And I didn't think, oh, sorry, Chuck, go ahead.
Well, Pamela, I just have a question. You go through many drafts, you said, when
Yes.
you're writing a story. And I think you said that was a matter of self-respect. Did you say that?
Oh, discipline is a matter of self-respect. Like, you know, like I've had students say, "Oh, I just couldn't write today. Or I'm going to miss handing that story in." Um, the discipline of staying with a story and seeing it through. I don't write every day, but I never missed a writing group. I always had something ready for a writing group, and for me that was my the aspect of self-respect that I demanded of myself. It's Chuck Close really said it. Inspiration is for amateurs, where maybe sometimes beginning writers think that they need to be inspired. And in my mind, no, all you need is to think about a tiny, tiny little unstable situation and then have the discipline to see it through one draft or five drafts or a lot of drafts. And sometimes I'm looking for the story, but I get the discipline, I mean, is just staying with it. Yeah.
Thank you. I see. Yeah.
Stephanie was next and then Ava.
I was just going to say that if her niece wasn't going to come for a visit, I don't think she would have changed necessarily. I don't think she was trying to pursue anything different. I think she was living her life as it was. And I don't think she was stressed out or upset about her one night stands. She just kept going on. And I think if she didn't, the thing that was the precipitating incident was the fact that she had to deal with this niece that was going to come and stay with her. Otherwise, I don't think the change would have happened.
Right. Actually, that's interesting because the unstable situation that I like is the niece coming? In other words, she had a perfectly stable situation. She loved getting drunk. She didn't like her job. She liked falling into bed with anyone she fell into bed with. That was a stable situation. It wasn't a good one, but it was a stable situation. The unstable part for me in terms of that story is, you're right, the niece is coming, and what is she going to do? Yeah.
Right.
That-
Well, I saw something in the backstory too. I mean, apparently she's either the younger sister, or she's obviously the less responsible sister. So one way or another, she seemed to have maybe some kind of an issue with her sister that she was dealing with her drinking, because her sister apparently, and I guess she's doing archaeology with her husband,
Right.
and and he's a professor or something, and it's certainly in a different category from what Trixie was doing. So it seemed to me that maybe her drinking was in response to some of that. I'm not saying all of it, but maybe some of it. And I agree. In the story, you have the device of the niece coming, and that changes her. But I don't know if it causes her to really be different from what she really would have been if she had the chance. And the niece becomes the chance to do it.
The niece becomes the unstable part of that
Right,
trajectory.
right, exactly. Ovid, okay, yes.
Okay, so this is a very interesting, Pamela. You pointed out at the very beginning that the forget plot. I have to learn to do it. Now the question, you mentioned that you're writing flash fiction, and I write fiction and don't write memoir or essay like that. So flash fiction is short, but it has a story in it. And my understanding, story plot is a structure, and it's a story as well. There's a beginning and the end. That's a plot, and that makes a story. So if forget about plot, yet writing a flash fiction, which is so condensed, so short, how do you handle that? How do you handle each element in this short unit of a story?
You know, that there's a fascinating responses to the idea of does a flash story, a short story, have to have a plot? And it all came about, everybody was trying to decide the difference between a prose poem and a flash story. And in what came out of that for me was somebody, I can't remember, it was a woman who said all she felt that a flash story needed was movement. So in terms of my tiny little flash stories, I don't think it all in terms of plot or unstable situation, maybe unstable situation, but just a slight little movement in the story. And yeah, there's a woman by the name of Francine Witte, Witte, who does prompt sessions that are really quite wonderful. And if I maybe I'll Sharyn, I can send you the link to. She does flash sessions of an hour and a half or 2 hours, and just kind of like gives a prompt. But she works a lot with structure, which is interesting. You know, repetition or whatever. So Ava, I think if you're writing really short stories, 100 words to 1,000 words, plot is a real boulder on those. What you need is a slightly little unstable situation, just slightly, a little bit of movement. Sometimes the movement comes in the last line. I have two stories in the best, I thought I had it here, the best microfictions of 2023. And boy, the movement in that is just really slight. There's no plot at all. It's just all unstable situation with a slight movement. But yeah, it's sort of interesting to me that I've never written a novel. Yeah, so I don't know.
Have you written
I'd like to
poetry?
write a novel. What?
Have you written poetry?
I have, yeah.
Oh.
When I started out, years ago, I had a close friend who had some unfortunate situations and moved in with me, and she was a poet. And I started writing poetry. She lived with my husband and me for about a year, and there it was. You know, writing is catchy. It just is. Thank God. Reading is catchy. You know, I can't stand to see someone get into the elevator with a book and I can't see the title. You know, if someone's you know, sitting near me somewhere at a concert, I just have to know what they're reading. It pleases me only half the time, but yeah, I think reading probably for all of you is a way of life. It just is. And who's reading Portrait of a Lady? Oh my God, that is so wonderful. Yeah, James, I could sink into James. And as I said, I just read the Europeans and found that quote.
Hey, does anyone else have any more comments, questions, observations?
And Pamela, back to that What If, the newest edition. Are you still writing with somebody else to do this series? Who
So,
who are the authors of this latest one?
this just my Anne and me. They used to force us to do a revision. This is the fourth revision, third college edition, because they wanted to send, you know, they wanted to sell books. They wanted everybody to get the new edition. And they haven't required us lately to do that. I hate, so when they do that by contract, you have to get rid of 25% of what's in here and put a new 25% in. It's all just for the money. And if we didn't do that, our contract says they can hire someone to do it for us. They haven't forced us to do that yet. And maybe it's because I think it just went into a Chinese translation. There's a German translation. So, but the newest one is just, it just is so much richer than the other one. And Anne and I are still friends, but I haven't written with anyone for a while. Yeah. How many of you are writing? Sharyn, you are. Charles, you are.
Of course.
So it's lovely to hear about Harvard Extension School, because I'm in a writers group. We're doing book in a year, and so we started in January, and it's all a professor missed a whole bunch of her students, and she's like, we're just gonna write a novel in a year. And so I'm not even close, because after I got there was an outline of 40 beats for a movie script, and so I just filled out the 40 beats. I'm like, yeah, that can be 40 chapters. And so now I'm writing a brick of a book, and it's going to be a book in 2 years or maybe 10 years, but it's lovely. And we have the writers group, and so it's, yeah, reading is so crucial to life and also to just all of my friends. And so I have taken so many notes on writing that I cannot thank you enough for sharing all of this. It has been enormous, and my desk is now full of notes on your story and index cards on how to get rid of my plot, which I'm already struggling with. So thank you.
Thank you. I will tell you, you know, sometimes you have those stories that are you just love. And a woman came to me, she's doing a movie of one of my stories, a little 12-minute or 15-minute story. And, you know, I do love, this is my my most recent book, Fabrications from Johns Hopkins. Anyway, the story is in there, and it's a creepy sort of story, but the movie is done and she's just doing post-production. I didn't know what post-production is. It's like when you need a dog barking, or you add the music and you do editing. So, but that's going to be out sometime soon. But writing a novel, you probably have heard of NaNoWriMo too, where everybody writes a novel in a month. Yeah. A
How do
novel.
you do that?
Right, yes.
I shouldn't even bring this up, but the actors union, SAG, you're still voting on ending the strike. What is your feeling about AI and writing?
Oh, AI is just deadly. And what they've done in order to establish AI, they take a whole bunch of writers' works and kind of like mush them all together. I had written a story. Anyway, it was a story that had a zombie line in it. So this one man who's really into technology said to me, "Okay, give me a tiny little storyline," and he fed it to AI. In 3 minutes, it came out with a plot, with a story. I couldn't believe that. For anybody who's teaching now, I don't know how you're going to know. First of all, why would a writer who wants to write ever use AI? But there are probably going to be people who do, and
They do already.
Yeah, do already. It's sad, and it's certainly for the screenwriters and SAG. It matters immensely because they can just kind of give them some elements. Okay, there's these 4 characters. The setting is this. A ghost is going to appear, and 5 dogs get murdered in the night, and then you feed that into AI, and it's going to come up with something, and it's taking away from the imagination of really great writers.
Yeah.
Sad.
Well, on that note,
Thank you.
is there anything would you like to say anything else, Pamela? Is there anything else you'd like to bring up?
No, I can't think of anything. It's been an enormous pleasure to talk to you all, and to have such a really close reading of my story, so close that it's made me probably see things about my story that I hadn't actually seen before as I worked on it in terms of technique. So, but that's what groups like this are for. That's what a writing workshop is for. And Sharyn and Charles, do you belong to a writing group?
Not me, not right now.
Not right now.
No.
But I might. I think you're inspiring me to do it.
Yeah, I depend on my writing group for support. Also, it's always a place that you're required to bring work to. It's a deadline of sorts, and I do this in deadlines in that sort of discipline. Yeah, but thank you all for such a close reading. I can tell you really read this story. I can tell you liked the story. You like Trixie, thank you. And
And let us know when is there going to be a film of this?
No, not that I know
of. Never know.
Well, let us know the details of whatever the film is going to be, and I'll pass it along.
Okay, and also Francine's workshops, if anybody's interested in those.
Yes, please. Okay, thank you. Thank everybody.
Thank you very much. It's very good.
Well, thank you.
Yes, it was really helpful for all of us, I'm sure. Not just Tamarah. I was taking a lot of mental notes on this.
Me too. Thank you.
Good to meet you, Pamela.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Even though we were colleagues at different times. Thank you.
Right. Oh, I'm sorry I missed you there. That would have been fun. John Scoyles was the department chair when I came in. So that was
I could see that. I think he was coming in just as I was leaving. I moved to New York or the New York area to be an editor again. I kind of alternated between teaching and editing. So at magazine editing. So that's why I wasn't there then. But Franklin, I can't remember his first name. But yeah, it was a different chair. And we put those two departments together.
That was amazing. I didn't even know that history at all.
Yeah, because I had a background in journalism, and that was what the professional writing was about. So I was able to bring that over to the creative writing and literature people. So it was interesting, an interesting time of upheaval, shall we say.
Yeah.
Sorry, I have to leave for another book.
Yes.
group.
Yes, okay.
And
Well, good to
we
see
are,
you all.
this,
Oh, I
this is
love the
just
interview.
after, okay? So,
Take care.
okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye, Pamela.
Bye-bye.
Okay.